in Transition Society?
Yes, I can. So it started in the 70s. There was a woman by the name of Wenda Erickson who was a nurse and a counselor. So she used to go, I don't know how she got the job, but her job at the time was going into single mothers' homes who were living in poverty. She would go into these homes and just sort of help them with housework and talk to them and take care of any medical needs that was necessary. And she found out that most of these single mothers who were living in poverty were in that condition as a result of leaving violence in their relationships. So she realized there was a need for these women to go, for a place where these women could go. So she started taking in women just in the basement of the Deer Lake United Church, which was her church. She approached the church and asked them if they could use the basement to bring mothers in just to let them sleep overnight. So that's how it kind of started. They'd set up some mattresses down in the basement of the church, and these women and their kids would come in and sleep overnight, but then have to go back to the abuse the next day. But at least they were safe for the night. So she also started taking in when the basement was full or when it wasn't unavailable. She would always also take women into her own home. Her and a couple of other ladies would take the women into their own homes once in a while. They'd get a knock at the door in the middle of the night. So she rallied up a bunch of people from Deer Lake United Church. She got a bunch of people together that sat as the first board of directors. And when they created a board of directors, they were able to create a society. So she brought in Marguerite Dxion, who's the name of our organization. She brought in Marguerite Dxion, who worked at the United Way of the Lower Mainland at the time. Actually, it was the United Way of Vancouver or something like that. And she knew how to start up agencies, and she knew how to get funding. So she worked with Wenda to get a legal entity going. So the society became incorporated on January 4th, I think it was, or January 3rd, 1973. So then, now that they were incorporated, they then went to the city of Burnaby and asked them to rent a house. So they rented a house from the city of Burnaby really, really cheap. And that served as the first transition house. But soon they realized that a single-family dwelling wasn't really serving the purpose. There wasn't enough bedrooms, and there just wasn't big enough. There wasn't any area for offices. So they got Marguerite Dxion to help them find money. And Marguerite Dxion went out and did proposals and got funding together. They went to the city of Burnaby, and the city of Burnaby helped them find a piece of property, which they leased from them for really, really cheap. And they built the transition house that is being used today. So that was the beginning of the organization.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. It's one woman, one woman who started this, and she just had an idea and she just went for it. We just finished building a new second stage. Second stage is the next step from a transition house. So at the transition house, the women and children are only allowed to stay 30 days, and it's really not enough time to get them, started on a new life. They have to get income assistance. They have to do legal stuff. They have to find a new home for themselves, gather up new items, and move. We have an outreach worker that helps them with that stuff, and that outreach worker is funded by gaming. But we've just opened up a new second stage, and they can move from the transition house to the second stage facility and stay in the second stage in their own self-contained apartments for up to a year. And we named that facility Wenda's Place. Because when the transition house was open, the reason why we got the name of the society as Dxion Society was when the transition house was opened, Marguerite Dxion passed away. So they named the house, the transition house, as the Marguerite Dxion Transition House. And then the society was Lifeline Society, but it got mixed up with the little alarm system, so we changed the name to Dxion Society to honor the transition house. But then just a few years ago, Wenda Erickson passed away. So now that she's gone, we get to name something after her. So we named the new facility Wenda's Place after her, to honor the founding members.